boy Dave, saxologist. Thank you for joining me on Saxo Friends. Today is another special guest, and this is part two of this awesome sax player. And this is my West Coast brother, Mr. Mo Lewis. Mo, how
Hey
you?
there, guys. Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
Hey, well, thank you for joining me again, man. So I know the last time, we cut it short, said we agreed to do the part two, and thank you. And we both kept our word, and we got right on top of it though. So
Of course, man. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, bro.
yeah, and when we left off, last thing I'd ask you was I was talking about the state of the music industry as far as how to make money as an artist now, as opposed to it used to be physical CDs, but now you got streaming, etc. So, what are your thoughts on the state of the music industry right now?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting time in the music industry, but I think I wholeheartedly believe that there's a lot of opportunities out there for young independent artists or any kind of independent artist, young or old, rather, to be able to make money through the music industry in its current state. The major shift that I've seen is obviously there's a lot less major record labels, and typically the way a record label would work, if you're on a label, they're going to give you money plus and then some against your royalties in order to produce, your top quality product, right? They give you an advance. And now they don't do that. So everything is a little bit more self-funded, but I believe in my heart the technology has came to a place where, I mean, probably in a million years, I know that you've even said you're not very tech savvy, and all of a sudden you have a podcast,
Yeah,
right? So it's
right,
like
right.
technology is at a place where we can do a lot with very little, and the thing is if anyone's interested in it, for a while Steve Cole was doing these podcasts, and he's actually a professor at a university, and as well as an incredible artist himself, but he was mentioning kind of how a lot of his students were complaining about the state of the industry and explaining how they actually have opportunities to make money and make success that he never had, because the old fashioned route is, you have to be have a deal with a major record label and they have to fund it. And now it's like, if you have a couple grand, and you're a good musician, you can make a quality product and push it through social media, through TikTok, through live streaming, through building fan bases, through building your campaigns, through GoFundMe and things like that, where you can have a lot of success. I mean, a clear example, and it's hard to compare it to the music industry, but look at how many podcasters and YouTubers that literally decided to film themselves being crazy or doing ridiculous things, and they're multi-millionaires,
Yes, you're right, man. Yeah.
So, I think the key to anything is, and I think, even in my own life, I lack in this area. Is when it comes to musically, is you need to have a plan and have a purpose, and have a system, and be consistent about it. So like in my music business with the saxophones, I'm very deliberate and consistent, and I'm sure you know this, Dave. I post every single day, content videos, right? And you build a following and you build consistency and you build a brand. Well, the same thing happens with music, right? That's just the way it goes. And the same thing with you and your podcast. This might have started out as a fun project, but guess what? You're having every big name under the sun come on your podcast. You're doing it every single week. And that consistency is going to build to substance.
Yeah, I agree with that, and thank you for your kind words. I appreciate that, man.
Absolutely.
I wanted to talk to you about your saxophone business, man. That's pretty interesting, man. So, talk to me about how did you get started in buying and selling saxophone, and what is it that you do with your business now?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's pretty much more than anything, really a labor of love. I've been doing it for about the last 20 years, and it's been a real godsend to my life. I've always been on top of being a musician. I've always been an entrepreneur and a businessman. And even throughout my different business ventures that I've done, the saxophone business has always been there. And it's probably to this day still my number one profession that I've ever done. When I was a young student in college, about college, when I started really digging into the jazz scene and all, of the greats that came before me, I really had a fascination with what they played, what kind of mouthpiece did they play, what kind of reed did they play, how did they get their sound, And because of that, I just, essentially research as a labor of love, researched it obsessively, and learned a lot about it. And along the way, learned about gear, learned about saxophones, um, I came from a middle class family, so like my family couldn't really afford, to put $10,000 saxophones in my hands. So
Right.
in order for me to get the horns that I wanted, I had to dig. I've always been kind of a hunter, in that way. I grew up. My father's a guitar player and a guitar collector. And so back in the day, in the early 90s, we used to go around with the penny saver and the recycler, and we'd go and find gear, and he took me underneath his wing and kind of showed me it. And I love that hunt, of finding a good deal, the
Right.
connection that you meet with other musicians, buying their, the sentimental value, buying it. And so that hunt was kind of always in me. And then, and I needed to get good deals on things as a young artist, right? As a young college student, I should say, and so, I would buy things cheap and sell them for a little bit more in order to get, let's just say, the ultimate Mark 6 for myself. And then my goal was, well, I wanted to have all Mark 6s. I wanted to have a tenor Mark 6, an alto Mark 6, a soprano Mark 6. And yeah, I mean, I just learned along the way. And, I've always been in business and sales. And, I remember I picked up this one Selmer, vintage Selmer. It was kind of rare. It was a SBA alto, and it was the finish was this satin silver and then polished silver in the engraving, and it was a little bit tarnished. And I think I paid like $3,000 for it, and I came home and I wanted to make it beautiful. So because it looked a little worn, and I put some elbow grease in it and I polish it by hand, polishing it to make it look like new. And what I came to realize once it was done is that it was like basically a mint horn that just needed some polishing.
Uh,
So I turned around and I listed that horn on eBay for like, I think it was like, I think I paid $3,000 for it, and I think I listed it for $7,000 or 6,500 as an experiment. Like, this horn is, mint, and I think somebody bought it, in a matter of like a couple days for like $6,000. And so the minute that happened for me, something clicked. It was like, wow, I could actually turn this into a business. And then with all the knowledge that I had learned about, what kind of horn did David Sanborn play? What serial number was it? What kind of mouthpiece did he play? All of a sudden, you combine, and us sax players, we have a little bit of our own character flaw where we feel like, if we have a similar horn to David Sanborn, that we're going to play anything like him, which most likely we're not.
hello.
But it's a fun chase.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so all of a sudden, you start showing your knowledge for these instruments and saying, hey, this is the vintage that, Grover played, or David Sanborn or Boney James, and it's truly my passion between musicians as an artist, being a lover of jazz and smooth jazz, and just being absolutely in love and obsessed with what they do, I guess. And I
Yeah.
turned it into a business.
That's awesome. Let me ask you. Are you a vintage? Do you only buy vintage horns, or do you buy anything?
No, I mean, I primarily stick to professional level. I'm kind of a specialized boutique for high-end professional horns. But yeah, I buy the full gamut of professional horns. So I mean, I sell, these days I've been selling more Yamahas than I've been selling Selmers. But what really, um, the business evolves. And 20 years ago, when I got in the business, there was a lot more really premium vintage Selmers out there, and now, they've all kind of been bought and sold to collectors, or people aren't selling. So there's just not the same, there's not the same inventory that there used to be of fine vintage Selmers, And so and through that experience, I started trying other horns, such as Yamahas, such as Yanagisawas, such as Cowworth. And, I've learned a lot and found a lot of great horns along the way. And then the other thing is that, as the business has evolved and different marketing strategies have evolved, because when I started, Facebook wasn't a thing, Instagram wasn't a thing. So it was all eBay. And, rules, stipulations have changed on these platforms, to where I can't, rely on, my overhead being covered from eBay. So you have to grow. And with the evolution of Facebook and followings, just like I was talking about with the the musical scene, I've been able to evolve and grow. And I'm one of the largest, most well-known dealers in the world through social media platforms. And that's kind of my bread and butter. I mean, I still, still use the other ones too, but yeah, man, I mean, that's how it kind of came to be, and it's an ever evolving thing, and it's not. I love Selmers, and I have a great passion for them, but in order to stay relevant, and when you really look at it as your full time business, you just can't. Not everybody wants a vintage Selmer, and
Right.
quite frankly, some of the manufacturers, like such as Cannonball and things like that, they're so technologically advanced, and they have so many incredible techs that are assembling and hand assembling their horns
Right.
that you can't argue with the quality that they're putting out for the price difference,
Right. Right. Right.
so I don't put my nose up to any professional brand. I love the technology. I think each one serves a purpose at its price point, and I embrace them all, man, and I have nothing but such respect for all these manufacturers.
So you've learned so much about horns over the years. So do you do repairs as well? Did you learn something about repairs?
No, I've never really got into repairs. I am fairly mechanically inclined, so like I can take an instrument, and when it comes to me, probably 75 or 80% of the time I can figure out what's going on with it and where the error is happening in the instrument. And sometimes it's something that I can fix easily. It can be a little tweak, and I can do all those things. But when it comes to like, seating pads and things like that, or
Right.
like, sometimes when you get a horn, the bell of it gets ever slightly so hit, or the box gets dropped and it might get off a tiny bit. It's very normal. And so like my repair tech will do this thing where he's like, just to like get it to sit I don't mess with that, man. I
Yeah,
don't do any of that.
bad. Yeah, that's Jay Metcalf from Better Sax, man. He's a great player and a repairman. So, that's kind of unusual to be both, man. But he can do it
Yeah.
all though, man.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I love Jay Metcalf's content that he puts out. I love his instructional videos.
Yes, yeah.
Again, another gentleman just doing it right, man. Just
Yeah.
doing it right.
He's
And now I can understand why his product is so great, because he's a
he's
repairman too.
amazing. He's an amazing guy, man. I met him at NAM 2 years ago, and I saw him again last year. I'll probably see him in a couple. Are you going to NAM?
I'm not this year. No,
Not this year, yeah. Well,
no.
if you've been once, you already know what it is anyway.
I've been a lot of times.
Yeah,
And one of the things I told you is I'm not a guy that really, it would be great if I'm looking for a product or looking for a new mouthpiece or
right,
looking for a new. I'm as much as I flip around with horns and things because of how I sell them, and
right.
I don't really mess with too many mouthpieces. I have a style of mouthpiece that I play. I'm usually connected to the vendors, because of what I do in business, and I don't I don't I don't need to go try a bunch of mouthpieces, man. I pretty much stay in my lane with that stuff.
Right. You know what? I tell you what, man, I love that billboard awards, that chart that you got back there, man. How did you
Thank you,
feel when
man.
you got that in the mail, man? Did you do a reveal? Did you do a video
Uh, I
reveal on that?
I think I did. Yeah, I think to be honest with you, man, yeah, it was very emotional. It was very emotional because that was a time in my life when I had when I had changed my life. I decided to quit drinking alcohol. So this was the first huge life accomplishment that I did sober, which again, not I was a perfectly functional guy without it, but this is raw emotion here.
Right.
I think the biggest pride of that, though, more than anything else, was I didn't have one of those plaques made. I had two, because one was for my parents, right?
No,
Because this doesn't happen without them. It doesn't. If they didn't fill my heart and my life and my influence with these great jazz artists that came before me,
right.
if they didn't give me the gift of music and support that, even as an athlete, when I said I don't want to be an athlete, I just want to be a musician now. If they didn't fully embrace that, that doesn't happen.
That's right, man. Well, amen to your parents, man, for being there for you like that, man.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Hey, let me ask you, when you're in a concert or something, you're on the band, when you mess up, if you miss a note, you hit a note, you miss it. What do you do when you mess up on stage? Because everybody ain't gonna know it. You know it, but the
Yeah.
audience don't always know it. Well, what do you do in those situations, man?
I mean, I just keep it moving, man. I
Yeah,
mean, it just happens. Remember, one of the things that I was telling you about. I don't overthink it, and I don't think anything of it. I keep things going. But the major thing is, by the time that I get on stage, I'm no longer thinking about what I'm doing. It's a feeling. It comes to muscle memory. So I'm not thinking about what I'm playing, how I'm playing it, what notes come. No, I don't think about it. If it's not muscle memory for me by that point, we have a problem. You
Right,
know,
right,
that's
right. Yeah, well, you know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to say, like, you try to hit you miss a note, try to hit an altissimo note, and you miss
yeah,
it, but you just keep it going, though, right? You just
yeah. It's
yeah,
no big deal, no big deal.
yeah, you know,
You know, the thing that's beautiful about instruments and the saxophone is that there's so many harmonics, far few and in between, that oftentimes if you don't hit that note, it still falls in a harmonic of something that makes sense anyway. So, who cares?
you know what? You're right about that, man.
So, man, even the squeaks sound good. And you know what they say about jazz? There's no wrong notes. So,
Yeah.
keep it moving, keep it moving.
All right. Hey, let me ask you about accessories. What do you think about importance or not importance of a ligature? You know, all these, the hexagon, this one, that
Yeah.
one, that. What do you think about ligatures?
Um, I think everything comes down to the individual and what they feel, whether it's a placebo effect or not, whether it's in their head. For me personally, I've had, if I were to show you my desk right now and show you how many mouthpieces and ligatures and different types of reeds are out, it doesn't look like this. But yeah, for me, man, it listen, I think it does make a difference. And if you feel it and it gives you even more confidence at doing what you're doing, then I say I'm all for it. For me, I'm weird. I know that there's a lot of engineers and a lot of really great sax techs that will say, hey, the finish of a saxophone doesn't make any difference in the sound, whether it's black lacquer, silver plated, gold lacquer. I call hogwash on that. And I'm going to tell you something. I notice direct differences between a black lacquer horn and a silver plated horn and a gold lacquer horn and an unlacquered horn. Okay. Not that I can scientifically explain them to you, but I know what I feel when I'm behind the instrument.
Right,
And I'll even push it a step further. If you give me the same mouthpiece and give me it in gold plated and silver plated or rhodium plated, there's a difference in the way the thing plays and the way the thing vibrates. I don't know why,
right,
but
right.
there's a difference in the sound you're going to get from the same mouthpiece, gold or rhodium.
Yeah.
So I do believe it, man. I do believe it.
And it, like you say, and it depends on the player. Somebody of your ability, and you've played so many horns, this, that, and the other, or you're going to be more tuned. As somebody like me, like I'm not going to probably notice the difference, but somebody like yourself, though, you've been doing it so long, and your trained ear,
Yeah.
you can hear it, but it's
No,
subtle,
definitely.
but you can tell, though. It's subtle, but you can tell, though, right?
Man, I can tell so well that I can pick up a horn and play it for about 20 seconds and know what I need to know. It's that quick.
Yeah,
And it doesn't mean, it doesn't mean that that horn is not a great horn. It's just I'm looking for something. I'm looking for a feeling. I'm looking for a sound. I'm looking for the way it resonates. I have so, but what I will say, which is ever evolving, is the way that what I'm looking for is always evolving.
yeah,
There's so many horns that I probably played 10 years ago that if I were to play the same horn today, I would absolutely love it, and I would just,
yeah,
so everything changes. But the one thing that I will tell you that even with the plethora of horns that I've had the complete blessing of playing and trying and selling, um, I got my horn, man. I got my horn, and I don't switch from my horn. I got my horn,
and I
and
forget now. What
and
set you
that
playing
horn was
again?
with me on that #1 Billboard too, and it's never gonna leave me.
Can you refresh me my memory? What you playing again?
It's a custom Z, a Yamaha
Oh
custom
yeah,
Z
yeah.
unlacquered. It's one of their Atelier models, a custom shop with no F sharp.
Okay.
And I play a silver plated C1 neck on that.
See one that who makes that one though? Is that
Yamaha. It's
oh
just they
Yamaha?
make different neck tapers. Yeah. So it would be the slimmest taper, the C1. Gives you a little bit more of a compact but more centered sound as opposed to being, real easy blowing and spread. It's more centered and focused.
What do you think about Yanni's though? Do you like Yanni guitars?
I mean, I think they're absolutely incredible instruments. I think that what they've done in the industry is second to none. I think their quality of workmanship and attention to detail is second to none. For me, it's not my style of horn, only because you know it's all about what we're used to, right? And it's about what we develop on. So I mean, if you get used to a cough or something with a wider body, of a sound, a big bore, you're gonna look for that. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So
Right.
I put I put Yanni's in the category of like a Cowworth. You got Yanni
Yeah,
of like the old American horns, like the King horns.
right,
Okay. Um, and so and even some of the new manufacturers, P Marriott, Cannonball, all big bell instruments. Okay. Um, but I did most of my fundamental playing days on Selmers. So for me, Selmer and Yamaha feel right in line with that Selmer-esque,
right,
bore
right.
style. So that's just what I'm more comfortable on.
What do you think about that latest Selma's Supreme? That's a gorgeous horn, man, isn't it, man?
Yeah, they're great. I've had several of them recently and sold a few of them over Christmas that I've had the pleasure of having here. Um, I think they're incredible instruments. They're some of the most absolutely even in tune horns that I've ever played, which is just remarkable how the technology can allow the sound to be distributed so evenly
Right.
up and down. But for me personally, I feel like in order to get that complex sound, again, they had to widen the bore so slightly of the instrument. I'm not a big guy. I'm about 5'9" or whatever, and for me, it feels a little big for me. So that was my like it's not for me. Like I like something a little smaller feeling.
Well, you know what, man? It's a trip now. How back in the day, because I'm 66 years old, so when I was coming up, everything was way expensive. You could, it was really hard to get horns, right? But
Yeah,
nowadays, the stuff that they are selling, the Chinese stuff now, I'm not saying you can go on there and go on, you ready for the Greek theater with it, but I mean, you
sure.
can get started fairly cheap now if you
Yeah,
don't have a lot of money, right?
absolutely.
Some of these horns are not that bad because I got a couple of John Pauls, and
Yeah,
those horns are really good, man, for the
yeah.
price, man.
Yeah, no, and I think that's, totally encouraging. I mean, I remember even when I started playing the saxophone, 35 years ago or whatnot, you know, I mean, I think my parents, back in those days, like you had to, if I was going to play the sax, my parents, weren't going to pay whatever. The student model back then was probably like 1,500,
Right.
or whatever it was. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
middle class families, like I don't got that kind of dough, government employees. So yeah, I mean the fact that you can, buy one 35 years later for like $600 or $800, I
Yeah.
mean it doesn't even make sense to rent the instrument.
Right. 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 Yeah.
So, my take on a lot of these instruments is that, they serve a purpose. I don't think that those instruments, if you're going to take it on the road and things are going to happen, I think that the metal's not the same quality.
Right.
They're not as repairable, things like that. Long
Yes.
term, I don't think they're going to hold up. So I'm not a big advocator of them, but if you're at a place where it's like, hey, I need something that's going to play good and get me started, yeah, I think it serves a great purpose.
Yeah, you get one of those glories or whatever. I remember
Yeah.
I bought one of those type. I remember when I got it, I opened up the case, I was excited, man, and I took that thing up and I tried to play. I was like, what the heck is going on? Well, one of the keys had fell off, man.
Oh,
It's,
yes. Some of them are better than others.
yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. I was like, oh man, that wasn't a good experience, but they made it right. I sent it back and they sent me another one though.
Nice.
So, but it's all good, man. So, do you teach, man? Do you have any teach saxophone?
No, not really. My gift, we all have our gifts, and my gift isn't really teaching. What I like to do more than teach, just because I don't have the patience it's just something that I've never felt the calling to do. I like to mentor people because I am a businessman, through and through. Um, and I would say, I mean, I could equally, if not more so, define myself as a businessman, even more so than a musician, because when I was in school with a lot of very incredibly talented musicians, and I came to the understanding, or I came to the realization that because I was always very directed and very ambitious, I didn't want to necessarily put all my eggs into the success basket of if you're going to make it or break it as a musician.
Right.
And so in order to do business, you have to understand a lot of things. You have to understand the steps, and you have to understand the process, and you have to understand how to present a product, right? How to sell a product, how to market a product. You have to make the right connections. You have to be a networker, right? You have to make the right connections to work with the right people. And so, one of the things that I believe, whether it's in the sax business or in the music business, is that, what makes me special and what makes you special is you. You can teach anybody to do what you do, and they're never going to be able to do it exactly. Like some people, they don't want to teach you the way because they're scared that if I teach you the way, you're going to put me out of a job, kind of
Mhm.
deal, right?
Yeah.
But I think the thing that I realize is that God has made us each uniquely perfect in his image and in his own way. And so I have no fear of teaching anybody the knowledge I have about saxophones or the knowledge that I have of the path to be a successful musician, or at least, as successful as I've been able to become. Because number one, I feel like God blesses that. Number one. Number two, it creates this deep bond and intimate connections with my musical brothers in the industry. And number three, I mean, look, what makes you special is you. So it doesn't matter if you teach people exactly, you could give people your exact questionnaire in your podcast. But if they don't know how to be friendly and befriend people and make the connections that you have, they're never going to be able to do what you do. You know what I'm saying? So I
Yeah.
don't operate out of a place of fear in that way, ever. So I like, and what I like to do is to mentor people, to teach them the way, help them out. How much money did I have to waste in order to learn the right way to do this? Let me save you some headaches, heartaches, and dough.
I like that, man. That's really good advice. And me being I'm a retired auto mechanic, and through my years of being a mechanic, I was the same way. I was never one of those guys that wouldn't share. If I figure out a problem, I'm not going to just hold on to that. So I know what it is, and we are working for a fleet, AT&T. So
Okay.
we got the same vehicles. So if I figure something out, I'm gonna say, hey Mo, man, on that one right there, man. If you get that P111, man, check this out right here. It'll save you
Yeah.
a lot of trouble. But some
Yeah.
guys won't do that. They'll just let you just
Yeah.
chase your tail though, because they don't want you to, feel like you know more than them. It's ridiculous though. But I agree with you though.
It is, and that's I don't know. Maybe it's my faith. Maybe it's just my good natured heart, I guess. But this is the way that I operate, and nothing's gonna change that. I want to help as many people as I can.
Yeah, yeah,
And I've been fortunate enough to do that with a couple people in the industry and things. And I feel like it's also been done to me that way too. This is a brother and sisterhood, us musicians. And make no mistake about it, it's hard and it's rigorous and it's incredibly expensive.
yeah,
The average person trying to release their music, I mean, you try to put one song to radio, you're going to be spending probably 7 grand. And if you don't make it, to one of the primary radio stations, satellite radio, you're going to lose all that money.
yeah,
How many of these musicians that are playing, two, three, 300, $400 gigs, how many times is a talented artist going to be able to do that? And not only that, before they throw in the towel, and not only that, um, you know, uh, the success of a song isn't always indicative of the talent of the artist. You know what I'm
right,
saying?
right. Yeah, that
You,
makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
yeah,
The business, like you say, the business is so tough, and because it's not like working a regular job, you got something coming every 2 weeks. When you're a musician, you got to get the gig, like you say. And first of all, a lot of times, I know, they're not paying you for what they're not paying you guys for your worth.
no,
Not even
no,
close. You
yeah.
know,
And the thing is like if you're gonna do it, I think, my major advice that I could give that I haven't even done myself, because I just haven't been in a place in my life where I've had that time necessarily. Dave, is you got to just love it. You got to love it, and you got to be willing to do it for free almost. And you have to look at it in the right light. And the right light is this is a business. And when you're starting a business, like if you're starting a new restaurant, you're going to have to give out some free food in order for people to start, knowing who you are and wanting to come back. You know what I'm saying? And it's the same way it is in this industry. And so, because of my life and my family and my responsibilities, I haven't been able to do that as much as I would like. But there is times that I still do it. And I don't do it for money. I do it for, I understand the marketing aspect of it. and the networking aspect. And and then the other thing is, the more musicians, if you can hold your weight, the more musicians that you get yourself in front of, the more opportunities you're going to get. And that's how it builds. And you combine that with social media and building a following and everything else you're doing, and that's how it works. That's how it works.
So now in 2026, you mentioned before that you want to put yourself out there a little bit more this year, right? You want to
Yeah.
play a little bit
Yeah,
more.
I'm not 100% definitive about anything right this second. I'm kind of waiting on God for some of these things. I'm in some things that I don't necessarily feel comfortable saying right now, but I'm in the midst of some big life changes, and so I'm hoping that the light at the end of the tunnel with these changes is that opportunity to just sit with music for a while and really get out there. My goal is for 2026, but it's hard to say exactly because a lot of these big events are usually booked a year prior. So if I can hop on some of these events with some people, even as a guest artist, that's probably what I'll be doing. That's what I've done a little bit of so far. And then just getting in the frame of mind to want to get in my creative and sit down, and make some more music too, and that comes from a very personal, inspired place. And for me, there's some people, it's like when they're going through tribulations in life, it's when they make their best music. And I'm a little bit different. For me, I'm the most creative and inspired when I'm have things a little bit calmer in my life and happy in happier times.
That's good, man. So what are you practicing these days, man? Are you getting your chops back together and you staying on the
Yeah, I
swing?
mean, so for me, it's a little mix of everything. And like I think we had talked about it on the first interview. You know, I'm a huge fan of music in general, all types of music. I mean, I love, you know, uh, it started with a undying love for R&B and soul music, and that soul music branches out. I can't just say it's R&B anymore. I mean, it really branches out to rock music,
Right.
blues,
Yeah.
anything that has soul. I mean, there's a lot of, rock artists that are very soulful, so anything that has soul, it branches to country music, man. The last couple years I've been listening to a lot of country music. And
Okay.
so what ends up happening is music, when I put on music and I hear that, it's like it winds me up and it makes me want to play. So the spot that I've been in a lot lately is I go to my bedroom, not even my studio where I'm at. I've actually, this room has been a little quiet right now. And the reason why I don't like to spend a lot of time rehearsing in here is because the sound is dead. So you don't hear anything, unless you have your headphones on, you
Okay.
don't hear any reverb,
Okay.
unless it's through, your equipment.
Right.
So I go to my bedroom. I have Sonos throughout my house. I put on some music that I like, and my saxophone stays in my bedroom with me. Okay, it stays on the stand. And as soon as I hear something that inspires me, I pick up my horn and I start playing.
No, that'll work. Yeah.
So what do I do? It's a combination between being inspired by other musicians, playing with them, learning from them, learning different harmonic ideas through them, melodies, and studying melodies and harmonies and kind of transcribing it and trying to do it on the spot with them, so it's like, okay, I heard it once. Okay, next time we're going to play the hook, I'm going to play the harmony of that part with them, right? Because if you think about it, when you get on stage, if you have the opportunity to get on stage with those musicians and you can do that, you can figure out the harmony real quick with them. Boom, it's locked in immediately. So your ear has to be that good. So that's what I work on, on just um and again, for me, I'm of the belief, there's some incredible artists these days that are so technically inclined, that are just absolute prodigies.
Yeah.
Um, that's not that's never been me. That's never going to be me. Never. For me, it's the beauty of the sound and what you play and how you say it. So for me, there's a lot of interpretation of very simple melodies, because that's where the heart and the crying and the emotion and the pain and the everything that can relate to people comes out. And that's why I told you, like, Kirk Whalum is such an inspiration. I mean, just, to me, because of the way that I literally feel that he can connect with the horn and just cry out these notes. And so
Yes.
the other thing I've been
Excuse me.
working a lot is, altissimo. So instead of thinking about attempting it and playing it, sometimes using it as a crying effect, where you're like,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
sorry, that was a bad singing
No,
example,
no, I
but
know what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and doing that, and just feeling more comfortable and, to just screech out these cries of, whatever your emotion through those notes and to not have to worry about, I'm going to hit them, I'm going to play up to it, hit it. But it's just like to be it's so in control that it's like, well,
Yeah,
that you can
yeah,
just,
yeah.
yeah.
Because
So anyway,
that's not easy to do, especially in autismo. Is a lot of times, especially even with Gerald Albright, you hear and then you just work. You got to work up. Sometimes you can't just go from
yeah.
here to there, right? You gotta you gotta work it
So
up.
I'm at this place where with those notes I've been gaining a lot more control of them, and again, man, it's not a pattern, it's not a technique. It's truly a vocal line, man,
Yeah,
and where they come in, and changing the speed of air and how you're evoking that emotion has a lot to do with your control and how you play it. And it's just an extension of voice. I don't know how to say it. It's truly, man. It's just I feel it, and it just and you hear it, of
yeah,
course, too.
yeah.
But yeah,
When you hear guys like Chris Potter play, man, it's like how Chad LB, that
yeah.
dude,
Oh,
he's insane, isn't he, man?
yeah, oh, man. Such an incredible artist, and they're everywhere, man.
They are, they are.
It's and it's hard as a musician not to compare yourself to everyone else, and to not be incredibly discouraged
Right.
as you compare yourself to everyone else. But you know what, man? That's I just try to remember that's not why I do music. I do music for the love that I have for it, the way that it makes me feel, and in turn, hopefully other people can feel what I'm feeling when I'm playing it. But make no mistake about it, I never get it twisted. Like these guys are, in their they do their thing, and I love it, but it's just, it's not what I do in my way, but I don't love it any less.
But you see what you got behind you there, so what you're doing is the right thing because you wouldn't have that on your wall if you weren't doing the right thing, brother. Uh,
Anything you lead with your heart, man, I think,
that's it. That's
it's
it.
okay. You're going to do all right.
Man, we're about to get you out of here in a few, but I have to ask you about Georgie Porgy, man. I love that song, man. Your cover, I've heard a lot of covers, but your cover of Georgie Porgy was insane, man. How'd you come up with that, man?
Well, so that was actually the first song that I've ever recorded, ever professionally and released. It wasn't the first song that I released to radio, but it was the first song that I ever wrapped a recording with, and it happened to be my second release. That song, that was a song that was produced by Huge Groove. And I typically, for most of my releases thus far, have worked with Jeff Carruthers, which is one of Huge's very best friends. But when I came to Huge's house that day to buy a saxophone, I'll never forget. I'm in his studio. Huge is one of my favorite sax players, by the way. Okay, I'm in his studio trying out this horn, and he puts on his backing track for "Sneak a Peek," one of his tunes, right?
Right.
Which I didn't know it completely or anything. And he's like, "Yeah, just." He puts on the headphones and he goes, "Let's record some of it. Let's just play a little bit." So I started playing, and I mean that if that's not enough to make you almost have a heart attack dropping to the floor,
Yeah.
but he liked what he heard, and he was complimentary, and I felt comfortable enough to ask him like if he'd be willing, to. I'm interested in releasing music, and if you'd be interested in helping me, maybe working with me as a producer. And I remember his response was like, I'm real busy. I'm working on my album right now. It's hard for me to because he has a label behind him, so he has deadlines that he needs to hit and
Right.
everything, right? And we started texting each other a little bit afterwards, right? We just became friends and talking. And he goes, you know what? I've thought about it. If you want to do this, like you have an idea of what song you want to do, and I go, yeah, I'd like to do Georgie Porgy. And he goes, okay, if you want to do that, I can help you with it. Let's do it. And so that was the first song that I ever recorded, and um, Huge, definitely put some magic on that one as far as like his production stuff that he did to help me out. Um, yeah, man, it's one of my favorite recorded songs. It was my second song that I ever released. It did get picked up by Watercolors, so that was like a huge relief off my back, knowing
Awesome.
that
Yeah.
okay, now they know who I am,
Right.
and thankfully everything since then has been picked up by Watercolors. Praise God.
Amen. Amen.
And I mean, shoot, the song after that was my number one actually. So that was Static, but I think that song is a number one, and I think that song would have gone number one if they had known if they knew who I was. That song was done, and that's not about ego or anything like that. Huge made that song
Yeah.
incredible, and yeah, I think it should have done better on the charts, but that was my first real entry out into the world of music.
Man, that song was great, and then the cover was even. And you a good looking guy, man. You was looking suave on the cover too, man. You did the whole
Thank
thing
you.
right, man. Yeah,
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
yeah,
But yeah, I got to give a lot of credit to Huge on that one, and Jeff also helped him, unbeknownst to me at the time, but he also helped him with some of the reharmonization of the chords and stuff.
yeah.
So
Okay, all right,
yeah, yeah.
man. It's good to have good people in your corner, man. And uh, you know, and you're a good guy, man. And I wish you nothing but much more continued success, man, in both your businesses, music and your saxophone business, man.
Thank you,
You
man.
know. And I hope to see you around again, man. We probably running. Do you go to a lot of concerts here and there?
I do here and there,
Yeah,
just to, yeah. I love seeing live music,
yeah.
so when I can, I definitely get out, and I'll try to make myself out there more. I hope to run into you more, and I think if we're gonna leave with one point, I think the important thing is we all need to be kind to one another and help one another, and just try to be good to each other, and to spread the love, man, because that's what life is all about. Life is short,
And that's what, you're so right, and that's where we as musicians, we're charged. We have a charge with that to try to save the world with harmonies and everything.
Yep,
With all this fighting and all this nonsense going on, good music, regardless of what you like, is always peaceful.
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Thanks a lot so much, Mo. You have a good one, brother.
You
Okay.
too, brother. Thank you for having me on. God bless, and thank you everyone for listening.
All right, man. Hey, you
All
guys,
right.
thank you so much. That was my man Mo Lewis, and this is going to be uploaded on YouTube and Facebook a little bit later this morning. You guys take care. Thanks, Mo.